Hey, happy Sunday. I thought it was Monday, but it's Sunday. And I just wanted to give you guys a quick little story. Got the opportunity to actually engage with another human and got outside the house and went to the Y, and this girl had to check me in because I forgot my pass. So she's checking me in, and I noticed she's got a little butterfly necklace. And behind her, there's a Wilson volleyball. And I asked her, I said, have you seen the movie with Tom Hanks, Castaway? And she was probably, I don't know, she was young. She was probably her first job. She's like, no, I haven't seen that. And I was like, can I tell you a quick story? She's like, okay. And so I said, this is the story. I said, you got a guy who's got a beautiful wife, right? He's a businessman with FedEx, right? He gets on a plane. He's on this plane with his buddies who are the pilots and things like that. And I said, it crashes into the ocean. And he watches, his two friends get separated from him, and he just miraculously survives all of this, nobody else. And I said, now he's on an island. And I said, at this point, I said, he's on the island for 8 years. I can't remember if it was 8 or not, but 8 always stands out to me. So I said, and during this time, he didn't give up. I said, he started with nothing. There's moments he thought he was going crazy, but he just kept persevering, right? Keeping himself busy. And I say, could you imagine being stuck on an island for that long and trying to remain positive and keep your mental stability? And she's like, no. And I said, the reason I say that is because that volleyball behind you, that's Wilson. And I said, you know what people do in captivity, or, when they get in those isolation periods, right? She goes, no. She was helping me. And I was like, well, he was in a moment of rage because he had all these packages he had gone through. And I said, one of them he didn't open, but I said, we'll get back to that in a second. And I said, he's in this cave, right? Because that's what you're going to do. You're going to take that natural shelter. And I said, he's in there, and something happens, and he cuts his hand, and he takes the volleyball in rage, and he throws it at the wall. And I told her, I said, afterwards, he picked it up, right? He gathered himself, and he looked at it, and it was what the ancients used to do, right? With handprints on walls or what have you. But I said, in this instance, it was on that Wilson ball. And I said, he then put, 2 eyeballs and a smile on it, and he named it Wilson. And I said, in that moment, that gave him something to talk to. It reminded him of a moment. He processed the feelings, the emotions, and he knew, that he's not crazy, but he also used that object like you would, I don't know, like people would talk to a cat or a dog, or, when they pray to source, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. And, she's allowing me to continue. And I said, imagine after all of that, you get rescued. And of course, it's been 8 years and you were married, but your wife searched for you for years. Imagine her now too, right? Frantically searches in love, finally comes to the realization that she has to move on after so many years, understandably. Now the plot thickens, right? He comes back and, she's married to, she fell in love again. She found somebody, good for her. But she's torn between what she thought was dead and gone and lost, and what she had in front of her, and now what she has in front of her that she can't even believe is real. And they're very adult and about it, right? It's beautiful, scene and how they, constructed it. It's a very difficult situation if you think about it. And I didn't get too deep into that. And I said, the reason I tell you this is, I said, because even after the plane crash, and then isolation on an island, and then to come back and then to lose the love of your life, only to go back out on the street and not curse the universe or God, but handle it with ease and grace. And that one package, full circle, I told her, and I pointed at her necklace, I said, the butterfly, I said, it had an emblem on it, symbolism, right? It was a butterfly. And it was for an artist. And it was one thing he didn't open, and he drove it out. And there's, a direction, they show a road, like what decision are you going to make? It's like those books you read in elementary school where you could, if you wanted to go to page 48, you could. If you wanted the character to do this, or if you wanted it to do this, then you go to 58, right? It's kind of like life. But in this moment, I said, it's important. I said, just like a butterfly's got to come out and, Start is something different, and end is something magical and beautiful to transform. But he followed that. And looking back, I think a lot about why he didn't open that package, And he didn't even know. But the universe did. And I said, that's how the movie ends. So you don't really, And she's just like, and I said, thank you. I said, have a good day. And that was it. And I went and did my workout. But I was grateful for that moment to talk to her and to be able to even tell that story. I was like, oh, I should do this more often. Maybe when I have that, not everybody's going to take the time to listen or to humor an old man, right? But she did. And, with the necklace and the story, maybe something in that will stick with her and will be useful. And that's one starfish for the day. #1 starfish.